Hi everybody, welcome to the video. We're back with some tuning tutorials. Today I'm giving you 3 A-Class monsters, in my opinion, that you'll be able to use in this upcoming A-Class series. So, the first is the 1969 Chevrolet Camaro Jordan Luca 3 Motorsport Edition. A very long name indeed. And she's boasting 4.6 handling, 3.9 speed, 5.0 braking, and 4.9 acceleration. So it's a decently well-rounded car. So let's hop into this. And going from right to left as we always do. Nothing on conversions. Drivetrain, we've got a race transmission. The rim size is stock, but we do have the lightest wheels on it, the Speedline F1s. Tyre compound, we've gone for race. So we've got a light ballast and nothing else to report for the fuel and air and engine. So that gives you 525 horsepower, 486 pounds of torque, and it weighs 3,437. So it is a bit of a heavy boy, but now let's get into the tuning side of it. So we've gone for a 30 psi front and 30 psi rear. Heading over to gearing, we've got the final drive at 6.10, 132, 0.98, 0.81, 0.68, 0.58 and 0.5. If you need a bit more top speed, potentially lower these down a bit. If not, just alter the final drive. The cambers, I've gone for -1.6 and -1.2. Doesn't need too much. It's pretty well rounded with these. Toe, I've gone for 0 and 0. Do not really want to touch toe with this. And a front caster angle of 7.0. Anti-roll bars, 21 front and 21 on the rear. So a very well balanced anti-roll bar setting. Springs, I've gone for a bit of a stiffer car this time to make it a bit easier for people to use. I've gone for 750 pounds on the front and 800 pounds on the rear. You're going to get that extra bit of rotation on corner exit, but still have that stability going through them high-speed corners. Maxed out the ride height because if you lower them too much, it's just slammed. 3.2 inches, it's way too low for a car of this stature. Feel free to lower it if you want. But I have kept it at 3.9 and it's been sturdy around most tracks and still kind of does sometimes bottom out. So just be careful with that. Damping, I've actually gone for quite a stiff bump stiffness. It worked for me, but feel free to lower this if you feel it's a bit too crazy for you. But I've gone for 5.1 on the front, 5.0 on the rear, with a rebound stiffness of 11 on the front and 10.5 on the rear. Works wonders for me. Very stable car. This worked well with 9.8 and 9.8. Usually I try to sway away from that, but 9.8, 9.8 seems to work. And if it works, hell, run with it. Anti-dive is at 45.8%. Anti-squat, I've got quite a severe number here, 50.0. Big number, but I wanted the car to stop squatting on corner exit, and this has worked. So downforce, 100 and 200, or maxed out front and rear. Braking balance, personal preference, but I've gone for 50, 150. And the acceleration's 100% and the deceleration is at 10%. So you're going to have a little compilation now of how the car actually behaves before we move on to the next car. And now moving over to car number 2. It's a car that I've not really ever seen used in online hoppers. It's the BMW 2019 Z4 Roadster. A lovely looking car, in fact, and it's got quite a lot of history behind it, Z4. So let's get into this and let's tune this bad boy. So hopping into performance and going from right to left. No engine swap, no drivetrain swap. We've got a front and rear race aerodynamics. Nothing on the bumper, hood, or side skirts. All of these are maxed out, so we've got the differential, driveline, transmission, and clutch all maxed out. Wheels, we've gone for the lightest wheels again, the Speedline F1s. Tyres, we've gone for race tyre compound. We've left the front tyre width as is, at 255mm. And the rear tyre width, we've bumped up to 295, just to give us a bit more grip on the rear of the car. Platform and handling, we've gone for race brakes, race springs, race front and rear anti-roll bars with a race weight reduction. No chassis reinforcement or roll cage, but we do have a medium ballast. Engine, we've got a sports flywheel because that's pretty much all we could install. Gone for the restrictor plate. We've restricted the airflow to lower the horsepower to get it into A class. So let's get under the bonnet now and let's see what makes this car tick. So starting with tyres, I've gone for 30.5 psi front and a 31.5 psi on the rear. Following this, we've got gearing with a 6.10 final drive. There's 8 gears, so I'm not going to name all these numbers, but 205, 135, 101, etc, etc. Moving over to alignment, we've got a -1.6 front with a -1.0 on the rear, 0.0 front and rear toe with a 7.0 caster angle. So for anti-roll bars, I've gone for a stiffer front ratio compared to the rear. So we've got 23.09 on the front and 19.0 on the rear. Worked really well, very stable through the chicanes and not too twitchy. This probably looks a bit strange, but we've gone for £700 on the front with the spring rate and $650 on the rear. Very rarely you see the front stiffer than the rear, but this car needs it. We've opted for it, and again, it's super stable through them high-speed corners. Ride height, 5.1 on the front and 5.5 on the rear. Just enough ground clearance to stop it bottoming out during them fast corners. Bump stiffness, 3.7 on the front and a 3.5 rear bump stiffness, followed by 10.7 rebound on the front and a 10.2 rebound on the rear. Again, a really easy and stable car to use, and it's a very fun car to use as well. I do recommend giving this one a try. Suspension geometry, we've gone for 7.9 on the front and a 7.5 on the rear. The anti-dive, I've gone for 20.4, and the anti-squat, I've actually got it at -0.2. But if you want a bit more rotation, stick this up to 5, maybe 10 at the most. And if you want a bit more stability, which it doesn't really need, you can drop this to maybe -5, -10 also. Aerodynamics, I've maxed them out 100 and 200. Anything less than 200, the back end was just a bit too twitchy, so I did max out the rear downforce. Braking, 50 and 150, or whatever you want. And 100% acceleration with 0% deceleration. This car is a bit of a head turner, let me tell you. And again, enjoy these clips, and I'll see you shortly for car number 3. Lads, now, just before we hop into the third and final motor, I'm hoping you are enjoying this video. If so, drop a like, let me know. Drop me a comment, I'll love you forever, and I'll be thoroughly appreciative. And if you're not subscribed, why? Hit that subscribe button, lad. Trust me, it will be worth it in the long run. So let's hop into car number 3, the 2023 Lotus Emira. This is the grip machine. And starting from right to left, we've got nothing on engine swap, no drivetrain swap, and we do have a positive displacement supercharger. Race aero on the rear and on the front, with a race transmission, a race driveline, and a race differential. We've gone for the 21-inch rim size on the front and on the rear, and the wheels that we've opted for are the lightest ones. So the Team Dynamic Racing tyres, let's move over to the compound. We've gone for a race tyre compound, with a maxed out front tyre width at 255mm and 305mm on the rear. Braking, we've gone for race brakes, race springs and dampers, front and rear race anti-roll bars with a race weight reduction. No roll cage and no ballast. Heading over to engine, we've gone for the raised flywheel just to shed a bit of weight. And that, my friends, is everything installed on this Lotus Emira. So now, let's get into the garage and find out what makes her go. So, tyre pressure, 28.5 psi front and 29 psi on the rear. Moving over to gearing. Gearing, we've gone for a 6.10 ratio with a 186 first gear, 121, 0.95, 0.78, 0.65, and 0.57. If you need more speed, drop the final drive a bit to maybe 5.6 5.7, but I think that is a pretty solid ratio for this car. Camber, we've dropped the front camber ever so slightly, a lot of front end grip in this car, so negative 1.4 on the front and negative 1.2 on the rear. 0 toes with a 7-degree angle of caster. Anti-roll bars, we've gone for a bit of a stiffer motor with this one. We've gone for 26.59 on the front with a 25.06 rear anti-roll bar stiffness. Again, super stable through the chicanes, and it really did work very well for me. 650 pounds on the front spring rate, and the rear spring rate I've gone for 700 pounds with a ride height 5.2 inches front and 5.8 inches on the rear. Bump stiffness 4.2 on the front with a 4.7 on the rear, with 8.3 rebound stiffness front and 8.9 on the rear. Don't get it twisted, these do look low, but it does work very well with this Lotus. Roll center, because these springs are a bit stiffer, I've managed to drop these down a bit because the car doesn't roll anywhere near as much. I've gone for 4.3 on the front, and just to aid in that rotation on corner exit, 4.7 on the rear. Accompanied with a 35.4% anti-dive to stop that front end slamming into the ground, and a 20.1% anti-squat to stop the rear from squatting too much and giving us that excess understeer that we don't need coming out of corners. Moving over to aerodynamics, so the downforce on the front is 128, so maxed out on the front, but the rear we've dropped slightly. I've dropped this to 190 pounds, and this gives me a tiny bit more speed down the straights, but still gives me that stability in the corner that I need to maintain that cornering speed. Braking 50 and 150 as always, and the differential set at 100% and 0%. So whilst I'm here, do me a favor, click this video up here, give that a watch. But thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoy the video, and as always, take care of yourselves. Stay tuned for more.